Today, Matt Barrows tweeted out 49ers are believed to be one of the teams most interested in tight end Zach Ertz, who may wait until next week to decide. SF theoretically could put tight end Ross Dwelly with a high ankle sprain on IR to make room. I imagine Shanahan is all for adding a veteran weapon with a Super Bowl ring to the roster. Zach Ertz obviously was released a few weeks ago or about a week ago from the Cardinals. He's a veteran. He won a Super Bowl. The Niners have an injury at tight end. What do you think about adding Zach Ertz to the 49ers roster?
I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, first of all, the 49ers have never under Shanahan had the two good receiving tight ends on one team. They did it. They had it with Jordan Reed for like a couple games in 2020. He got hurt, and that was it. Ertz would give them a legitimate red zone threat. And especially now with Dwelly going on potentially needing to go on the IR. I mean, he's got a high ankle sprain. High ankle sprains could be 7 weeks. That means he could be done until playoff time. So now they actually have a need. And Ertz is not a great blocker, but he's a great receiver. And he's a NorCal guy. He went to Stanford. His wife, Julie, I think, went to Stanford. They're both Bay Area people. He went to Monte Vista. It's in Danville. Go get Ertz. Go get Ertz. And I'd be selling him, because I mean, think about it. It's like as much as Brock Purdy loves to go to the tight end, as much as the Niners have been. I talked to Charlie Warner today. He was saying that, in the last month or so, the Niners have used more of the two tight ends, and he's in there a lot as a blocker. Okay, great. So you got Charlie as that extra blocker in the two tight end set. How about Ertz as the extra receiver in the two tight end set? I love the idea. I would definitely do it. I would absolutely do it. I think he's an upgrade from Dwelly, and I like Dwelly. But, I mean, come on. Zach Ertz is, and this idea that he's lost it, I don't agree with that at all. I mean, if he's lost it, he must have lost it in the last couple of weeks, because I saw him against the Niners on the field in the Arizona game at Levi's earlier this year, and he played well in that game. So I absolutely would be interested.
I mean, when the name first came to mind, I immediately thought, I'm like, oh, that's not really a Niners tight end. Niners tight ends are more blocking tight ends, because you think of George Kittle, you think of Warner. But, Dwelly is not really your blocking tight end. He's more of a receiving tight end, and so is Ertz. So it kind of makes sense. I haven't watched every single Arizona Cardinals game. I've seen the game against the Niners, and Ertz played pretty well in that game. He almost caught a touchdown towards the end of that game too. But I mean, looking at some of his PFF numbers, he is having his worst PFF year. Take that for what you will. But I mean, he's a receiving tight end. He's a good receiver. He's pretty dynamic. He'd add another layer to the 49ers tight end room, especially if Dwell is going to be out for a long time. I'm not sure what the contract would be, for how long, for how much, but if you can make it happen, I don't see the harm. So,
well, I mean, I to me, it's much more of a necessity than you're painting it to be. What if George Kittle has a pulled hamstring in a playoff game? You're now going to go with Charlie Warner as your number one tight end the rest of the game. You got to have a number two tight end. They really don't have a number two. They wanted Latu to be that guy. He's on the IR.
They have Braden Willis.
They have Braden Willis. They could go to Braden Willis, but he's a very young player. He's not the biggest player either. He hasn't played a lot. He's kind of transitioning from kind of a half fullback, half tight end role to like a full-time tight end. There's a lot to learn in the NFL when in this offense, when you're playing the tight end position. I think a guy like Ertz would be fantastic. Yeah, I absolutely think, and not only that, I'd be interested in doing it even if Dwelly was fine and you just did it as a block. Because let's be honest, if Kansas City gets a second tight end, their chances of winning the Super Bowl go up. They've got terrible receivers. Kelsey and Ertz would give them a two tight end set. Ravens have lost Mark Andrews for the year. If you take him and you sign him, you block him from going to Baltimore. Philly, what's Goddard going to give them the rest of the year? If you block Ertz from going there, that helps you. Dallas, he could go to Dallas. I mean, seems like Baltimore, Kansas City, Dallas, Philly, Niners are the teams. Buffalo, these are the teams that have interest. And I'd want Ertz just for the block potential, just to make sure the Ravens don't get him.
If they do go after Ertz, we are seeing a trend in them getting Super Bowl caliber or Super Bowl players, putting them on the roster because Logan Ryan was on some of those Patriots teams that went to the Super Bowl. And Ertz obviously won a Super Bowl in Philadelphia. And I feel like that might be an underrated aspect of this whole thing is that he has experience playing in the biggest game. And, the Niners, if you look back at the Niners 2019 team, they only have, I forget the exact number, but it's a low number of those guys are still on the team. It's not the same team, really. So,
Well, they just no. This came out today. I think there's only 6 players. Does that sound right?
I thought it was a 7. It was either 7 or 17. I can't remember.
No, I could have swore there's only. I mean, I think I retweeted this today.
I mean, I could name some of them right now. It'd be Warner, Bosa, Armstead, Trent, Ayuk, Debo. It has to be more than 7. Some guys on the line. Maybe not Banks.
It's not very many though. It's
Yeah.
not very many. So I mean,
I can just look at their roster. The 2019 roster.
Here it is.
Juszczyk, Debo.
Here it is.
Kittle.
I got it right here. Here's the tweet. It was from Johnny Dell. Johnny Dell's FA tweeted out. He says, "How good of a job has John Lynch done? If they make it back to the Super Bowl, they're only going to return 7 of the 22 starters and 9 of the 53 players total from their last Super Bowl appearance. 9. So, as well as a bevy of coaching changes, also would feature 8 starters on rookie contracts. Yeah, so 9 of 53 players are there from their trip to the Super Bowl against Kansas City. That means 44 players are new. That's major turnover.
Yeah, and we were kind of talking about this yesterday. The whole draft thing, I mean, John Lynch has done a great job in the draft. They have guys like Hufanga that they got later in the draft that have just been all pro guys, obviously. But landing the QBs that's worth like 100 times more. Like the Jets, in my opinion, have had good drafts. They've gotten really good skill players. They've gotten, Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams. They hit on that. They hit on that kid Garrett Wilson. They've hit on a lot of good skill players. I'm not sure Mekhi Becton's been, but still, they've hit on some good guys. And their team is shit. And it's all because they didn't hit on Zach Wilson. So I think hitting on Brock Purdy has really been, that really is just like the icing on the cake for John Lynch.
No doubt. No doubt. I mean, if you go into the 2022 49ers draft and you look at the players that they drafted, I mean, you're talking about a very disappointing group of players, except for Brock Purdy. You know what I mean? You're talking about Drake Jackson. You're talking about Ty Davis Price, who they cut. So, I mean, the 49ers have Danny Gray. I mean, Danny Gray was a high pick.
Zakel.
They're really, but, it's like, it's not that bad because overall you've got, you can go Drake Jackson, Ty Davis Price, Danny Gray, Spencer Burford, first 4 picks. But if you pick Brock Purdy, with
maybe one of your best drafts of all time.
Right.
So.
And let's be totally honest. I still like Drake Jackson. I like Danny Gray. I like
they just haven't played.
I like Samuel Womack. I like Nick Zakel. I think, when it's all said and done, that 22 draft will be more than just Purdy.
Yeah. No, yeah, I did. That wasn't really what I meant to say. But if you look at how much those guys have actually produced, Burford maybe being the exception, Drake is, down on the depth chart. Danny Gray's not playing. Obviously, TDP got cut. Zakel is injured. So that draft, obviously, is not making that much of an impact this season. But Purdy is all that matters.